Good afternoon. This is Lera, founder of Dietitian Your Weight and Registered Dietitian, coming to you with another interview. And this time I have Kourtney Johnson, owner of Intuitively Nourished. She is a copywriter. So this time we are doing something a little bit different. That's not private practice, but something that is, I think, pretty interesting to a lot of our dietitian network. Again, Dietitian Your Way is a dietitian network. Our goal is to empower dietitians and nourish communities while we're at it as well. So without further ado, let me introduce to you Kourtney Johnson.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Yes, thank you so much for hopping on with me. Like I said, I think our listeners are going to be really interested in a lot of things that you are doing in our community. So tell us a little bit about how you became a copywriter.
Yeah. So I guess we kind of have to go back first a little bit. So I started my career in clinical, knew that I didn't want to do that forever, but wanted that foundation. And then during COVID was furloughed and started a private practice around intuitive eating. And so, one of my passions is intuitive eating, but in addition to wanting to do private practice, I also really wanted to focus on writing, but I was so focused on my private practice that was put on the back burner. And eventually I became really burnt out from private practice. And so decided about a year ago um, to pivot and become a writer. And so that's been a really exciting, fun journey. And I feel like I finally found where I'm really supposed to be. It just took me, a few different things, trying different things out to see what I really, really love to do.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think that's like the course that a lot of entrepreneurs go through, right? It's kind of you got to figure out what it is that you are passionate about, what it is that you can do. So that's awesome. Tell me a little bit about your background as a dietitian before you became a copywriter. Like, where did you go to school? Like, what internship did you do?
I went to St. Catherine University in St. Paul. It's actually the largest women's college in the country, so very proud of that. Loved it there. And then did my internship at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. And that was a really cool opportunity because I saw lots of cases that were pretty unique to Mayo. Um,
Yeah.
and so that was a good start to my career. Prepared me well for my first clinical job and everything.
Yeah. How long have you been a dietitian for?
Almost 5 years. It'll about 4.5 years.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
awesome. And what do you like the best about being a dietitian?
I think it's just really neat how we can, do so many things, there aren't many fields, there aren't many careers where you can be a writer, where you can work in a hospital, where you can work with athletes, like, there's so much diversity, and I think that's a beautiful thing about the field because nutrition is applicable to so many different areas,
Yep. Yeah.
and our expertise is so needed, especially in the world of influencers and people who don't really have any business talking about
Yeah.
nutrition. I think that
Yeah.
our expertise is needed more than
Yeah.
ever. And so the more places that we can be, the more visible that we can be, the better. But even when I was choosing dietetics as a career, I remember one of my professors saying, like, one of the beauties of it is that you can do so many things and you don't have to go back to school for it. You don't have, unless you wanted to get like a master's in something, but as a dietitian, you have such a strong foundation anyway. You can go to so many different areas and serve well as a dietitian. And I was like, oh, that's really cool because knowing myself, I love variety, I get bored easily,
Yeah.
and so having options to try different things and add variety to my work and my day, that's like right up my alley. So it's a great fit that way.
Yeah, I think a lot of dietitians probably feel the same way. It's like if we get, tired of being a clinical dietitian, we can easily pivot to something completely different, right? You made
Mhm.
the journey from private practice or, from private practice to copywriter. Um, yeah, that's amazing. You have lots of good experience. So tell us a little bit about like how you made that pivot from private practice to copywriting.
So it started with my first contract job as a writer, which I still have this job as a writer for an agency for intuitive eating dietitians. So writing social media captions and writing newsletters for other intuitive eating diet RDs.
Mhm.
Um, and so that was like my jump into it. And then I wrote a guest blog for another dietitian about intuitive eating in the geriatric population, how that can help improve their intake. Um, and then from there, just purchased a course on called Writing for Money and learned how to pitch myself, learned how to, find potential clients. And so through that, I was able to get a few dietitian clients who I still have, who I still write blog articles for, and we're talking about other projects as well. Um, and then I also have a job writing for a diabetes company called Beyond Type 1, which is a really nice mix too, because again, I love variety. And so writing about intuitive eating, writing about diabetes related topics, like it's all a good way to have variety.
Yeah.
So really just networking and pitching and, letting people know what I do.
Yeah. And I think that's amazing. It's really hard to pivot, even though we're very multifaceted. We can do it all, and there's so many things that we can do because nutrition, like I said, is versatile, right?
Right.
Our fields give us that versatility as well. But sometimes it could be really hard pivoting from private practice to copywriting. It sounds really
Yes.
simple, but it's a lot of work, right? It's a lot of research and things that you have to do to get there.
Yes, even though I had the business background from a couple years in private practice, it was still anxiety inducing. It was still overwhelming because it was like I have a whole new audience.
Yeah.
I'm learning how to speak to this audience. I'm not on Instagram anymore. I'm on LinkedIn, like just a whole bunch of new stuff. And so it was definitely kind of felt like starting over.
Yeah.
But I knew at the same time that it was worth it because I knew that I wanted to prioritize my happiness.
I love that. I love that. And how did you kind of manage, switching over that and your anxiety, and how did you manage that?
Um, I was pretty open about it.
Yeah,
I was pretty open about feeling anxious about the whole thing.
yeah.
I was also in a networking group at the time, and I asked people to connect me with others who had entered into the writing space, whether it was writing for magazines, writing for newspapers, whatever it was, just their expertise and kind of learning how they got their foot in the door in different places. And taking a course. I met another fantastic dietitian who we've turned into friends, but she was kind of like my mentor, took me under her wing because she's a
Great.
writer too. And so just finding people who I could talk to and just kind of ask questions, that was huge.
Yeah. Don't you kind of wish that we had one centralized spot for just dietitians where we can just find mentors, we can find these resources, and we don't have to go and dig for them, right?
Right. That's why I'm excited to have this.
Yeah.
I think that's great. I think this is like what dietitians need. So absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah. That's the whole reason, right? I think we do need a space just for us so we can all network, we can all help each other, we can all support each other. Because I think there's a lot, everybody can win, as long as we support each other, everybody can win.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, because I myself am so interested in what does copywriting look like? What is the difference between like a blog and an ebook and like all these different sources of media? It's like, how do you tell me more? Because I have no idea what the differences are.
Yeah. So I guess first I'm going to start off by explaining the difference between copy and content. Because there's copywriting, content writing. I do a mix of both in my work. So copywriting is where you are trying to get someone to do something. So that's a little more like, sign up for my email list, like writing copy that sells, that kind of thing. You're convincing someone to take an action versus content is like information.
Okay.
So that's more so like a blog versus like social media captions where you're trying to get someone to do something
Oh,
with a social media caption. A blog, yes, you should certainly have a call to action at the end of your article. But it's more so information that you're selling versus or that you're communicating versus selling something. And so that's the difference, the very high level difference between the two. Difference between different types of content is that they all kind of serve different purposes. So for example, a blog can be search engine optimized. So we find phrases that score well for each individual website and gives that website a good chance of ranking on the first page of Google, because when someone searches something and something pops up on the first page of Google, you're most likely to land people are likely to click
mhm.
on what's on the first page, not the second or third page.
Yeah.
And so that gets more eyes on your brand, that establishes you as the expert in your area of
Yeah.
expertise, builds the know, like, trust factor. It's just a great free resource for people to have, and it also helps you get more website clicks, and that also makes you eligible for ad revenue when you have enough people to your website every month. Um,
I
and
think
so they're
wait, quick question, because I think all of these are so great, but I think we need to dive in a little bit deeper, because I think a lot of people don't know what search engine optimization is, or like ad revenue. How does this all work?
Yeah. So search engine optimization, there are different tools that you can use for it. So let's say I'm writing an article on intuitive eating and I want to write about intuitive eating and diabetes. So I would go to Key Search, which is the tool I use.
Mhm.
And you type in like intuitive eating and diabetes, and then it comes up with a whole bunch of keywords that has like the score and the
Yeah,
volume, how many people search for that each month. And so it's finding kind of the diamond in the rough,
yeah,
the needle in the haystack of a term that has a good score for your website and that has enough people searching for it that people
yeah.
will look for it and hopefully land on your website.
And I think that's why we need people like you, because I think a lot of this is going to go over a lot of our heads, right? We're going to be like, what is a score? What is this? What is that? And that's why we need writers who are dietitians, but and also know, copyright, know SEO and all that.
Right,
Yeah.
and it's time consuming, and
Mhm.
having a private practice, I totally understand the struggle of marketing and seeing clients and doing everything else that having a private practice requires, and so I think outsourcing and having someone in your corner who really understands it
Yes.
is a great opportunity to be able to let you do what you want, which
Yes.
is seeing clients, and let me or other people who write do what we want, which is writing your content.
Yes. That's such a great method. Okay, cool. So tell us a little bit about ad revenue.
Yeah, so ad revenue, I would say, is one of the big appeals of having a blog because it's a way to build visitors or
Mhm.
traffic to your website. So there's a company called AdSense, and as long as you have, I'm not positive on the number, but I want to say 50,000 sessions, so 50,000 people viewing your website a month, you're eligible to apply for AdSense, and then ads are on your site. Um, and the more people that visit your site, the more money you get from those ads being shown. So it's like passive income. You know, of course, you do need to keep your blog up to date, and you need to continue posting.
Yeah.
But it's a nice way to bring in some revenue. You know, literally in your sleep
Yeah.
because people are
Yeah.
visiting your website.
How long did all that take for, I guess, for traffic to increase on
Um,
your website, and, from the day one of starting
yeah,
to blog and post?
it varies, of course, but if you are pretty consistent in posting 2 to 4 times a month, I would say around 18 months.
Mhm.
So about a year and a half of being
Okay,
pretty consistent.
that's pretty
Mhm.
good.
It
Uh,
is.
yeah, I think, the whole concept of passive income is such a great concept, right? Because you can definitely make money while being in your sleep, definitely. I think the concept with passive income, though, is that, it's passive and you don't have to put any work into it. But the
And
reality is you do.
that's the thing, it's like you still need to continue doing your blog, you still need to continue advertising it, so it's not completely passive, but you're not necessarily trading in, 20
Hours.
hours for X amount of money,
Yeah.
you know?
And once you have it on the ball, it's like it's gonna continue to roll and continue to
Right,
grow. Yeah.
right.
What a great, advantage, right?
Mhm.
So many different outings for dietitians, and the services that you offer for private practice dietitians to make money on the side, but, not having to deal with it directly, because it is
Right.
very time consuming, right?
Yes.
Writing is not everyone's passion or everyone's forte. So, wherever your passion and your forte lies, and, that's where your time should be going, right? Not
Mhm.
where it's not
Exac
you're not really interested in, right? Leave it for the
exactly.
professionals like yourself.
Yes, life is too short.
Yeah,
Um, and we need to find things that we love, and if we're able to do them, by all means, do what
yeah,
you can to do them, daily or as much as you can.
yep,
Yes.
yep, use your free time for other
Mm,
things that are gonna bring you joy,
yep.
for sure. So tell me a little bit about why you think it's essential for people to reach out to dietitians instead of, nutritionists.
Yeah. Well, I think it goes without saying that we have the credentials needed. We have the 1,200-hour internship, if not more hours. We have passed the exam. We stay up to date on continued education. We're more, patrolled, for lack of a better word. We have more, um,
Guidelines to
maybe
follow.
more guidelines, more accountability, than the nutritionist. And
Yeah,
so, with a nutritionist, it's like, did you take a 2-hour course? Do you have any training? Did you take a
right,
1-hour course? Whatever. So the education and background
right.
between a dietitian and nutritionist, they're very stark.
Yeah.
Um
It's
and
kinda scary, right? Because,
yeah,
you're a patient who has diabetes and you're on insulin, you have somebody educating you on, you shouldn't be eating carbs. Well, we're gonna run into some serious problems here, right? So it's kinda scary
exactly.
when you hear things like that, and I have heard that, in my experience, I have heard of patients, being told the wrong things, so it can definitely go the wrong way really fast.
Exactly.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, it can be very problematic.
Yeah, so and then how did you get into intuitive eating? Why did you, kind of go in that direction as your specialty?
Yeah. So when I was working at the hospital, I had a coworker who was reading the Health at Every Size book, and she was telling me all about it. And I told her that I was on Weight Watchers trying to lose weight. I've always been in a straight size body, but weight has been something that's really crept up on me very easily. I
Yeah.
have type 1 diabetes. And so, like, as a teenager, every 3 months, I went into the doctor, and I'd always gain like 3 to 5 pounds every three
Mhm.
months. And so, weight was a huge issue for me. Like, my doctors made it a huge issue,
Yeah.
as a teenager, and that really impacted me very deeply. Um, because I do eat well. I did as a teenager. I was active as a teenager, still am. And but they put more emphasis on my weight than my diabetes at some appointments. And it was just always something that really bothered me, and that I felt like, what am I doing studying dietetics? If I gain weight easily, how am I supposed to help my patients who can't lose it, blah, blah, blah. And she told me about Health at Every Size, which I read, and then I found out about the intuitive eating book after
Yeah.
that, and I read it, and I was just blown away. I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, this is what I've
Yeah.
been looking for. This speaks to me. This is what I've been struggling with." And shortly after that, COVID hit, and I got the idea to start a private practice. And when deciding what I wanted to focus on, I had just loved the intuitive eating book so much that I was like, you know what, this is the natural path for me. I'm going to focus on intuitive eating, because it's one of my passions, and it still is, just in a different way. Just being able to write about it versus
You're
helping clients
still
do it.
helping, yes, for sure, because what you're writing is gonna impact a lot of different people.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, and I think, it's important to know that we do all come from different shapes and sizes and right? And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, right? We all have good bodies. So,
Yes. And I think that that needs to be, um, vocalized more, because there's so much pressure to be a dietitian and to have a certain body type.
yeah.
And part of it comes from diet culture, this idea from society that we need to look a certain way, but also from the profession. And, we need to eat perfectly, and we need to all look a certain way. And it's like, no, that's just not, it's not realistic. Look at our hair difference. Like,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
curly, mine is straight. It's like we all have different types of hair. So we're
There's
going to
no right from wrong. It's just different. We are
have.
different, that's all.
Mhm.
Right? And talking about that, I think the whole intuitive eating platform and the haze really helps, different cultures and diversity. People feel comfortable in their own skin, whereas, I know for a lot of people who are of the Latinx culture, the community, for a lot of us, we struggle with thick thighs and like, a lot of people struggle with curly hair, just,
Yes,
not being able to accept, who they are. And I'm sure, in different communities, we also see, different stigmas that are being portrayed as to what we should be looking like, right?
exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
What do you
Unfortunately, no one's immune.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So talking about, intuitive haze and diversity, what do you think about, diversity in dietetics?
I think that we need more diversity. I think it's a huge, problem within the profession that we have such a small amount of diversity. I think, anytime that we can have different viewpoints and different experiences, that's going to be helpful, especially for people, who don't identify as white. I'm a white woman.
Mhm.
I'm If
Mhm.
someone had a dietitian who looked like them, or who had their same background, they might be more willing to listen.
Yeah.
And so I think that, in terms of patient care and getting the word out about nutrition, I think people would be more likely to listen to us
Yeah.
if we had more people who looked like them.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
I agree. I agree. Of course, I'm gonna agree, right? I'm Latina, so like I'm gonna agree. But yeah,
Yes,
I think it's very much important. And also, I think for people who are not of color to also, understand like, hey, like there are resources out there too, right? Like if you're in a rural area and you are the only dietitian and you don't look like, the person who you are, counseling, reaching out for certain resources that could help you in those challenging situations is pretty important. So yeah, I mean, I think all around diversity, LGBTQIA community, like it's so important for us to understand as well, where are they coming from. And I think, that's the whole point of this platform is that everybody is embraced, no matter your background, your socioeconomic status. So yeah, awesome.
absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. Okay, so let's review your um, profile on Dietitian Your Way. What do
All
you
right.
I love this cover photo. You look
Thank
so
you.
cute. And I love how it's super direct. Let me help you with blog posts, articles, ebooks, and more. Let's go to your overview. And these are your previous work examples. So this is awesome. Like we have some links to your examples, some pictures to what you write about, your practice logo, the services you offer. Very cool. And then I think if we click on here, if we click on here, we're gonna actually get your resume, which is really cool.
Yes.
Yep. And then we'll be able to schedule your appointment, follow you on LinkedIn,
Hmm.
lots of cool stuff. Anything you want to share about your profile? Anything that I missed?
I don't think so. I think I just tried to keep it as straightforward as possible and as easy to navigate as possible around what I do. But of course, if someone's looking at this and they have more questions, please reach out.
Yeah.
Um, I might have missed something. So definitely just encouraging people to reach out.
Great, great, great. Yeah, I think this is awesome and very cool. And they can send you a message as well. So this is
Yes.
awesome.
Yes, which is great.
All
Yeah,
right.
I think this is a really, really cool resource that you've created. It's great.
Awesome.
I'm
Yeah.
excited about it.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on as our first copywriter. Seriously, like, I think, like we said, we're super multifaceted. And I don't think that we have to limit ourselves, just to working in the hospital, right? Which is what we all
Exactly.
typically start off as.
Exactly. Yes, there's a lot more that we can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even if you don't wanna start in the hospital, you don't have to.
Yeah.
I honestly, in my internship, I wish that I had known that
Me too.
virtual work was a thing. I wish that I had known that I could have written articles for
Yeah.
people. I would have easily done that. I worked at a grocery store till 10 at night some nights,
Oh my gosh.
I would have much rather sat at home at my desk writing. So, it's
Yeah.
just, what you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So
Right. Man, I graduated 10 years ago, so there was no like virtual option.
right, I graduated 6 years ago, so it's kind of the same thing. With COVID, I feel like the virtual options really came
Oh yeah.
about. Before that,
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
crazy because I mentor one of my dietitians and my mentee. She's applying for jobs, and I'm like, "Go you! You got a remote job. You're getting paid well. Like, go you!"
Yes,
Like
yes,
the profession, has advanced a little bit, but there's still
yes,
a lot of room to go and
there
to
is,
grow.
there is. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm, I agree. Yep.
All right. Anything that you want to say before we kind of wrap this up?
Thank you for the opportunity to chat. It's always really fun to talk with other dietitians and talk about different jobs that we can have within the field. So I really appreciate this opportunity, and I'm super excited for Dietitian Your Way to be
Yeah.
up and running and to connect with people on here and make new relationships. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you for hopping on. I think a lot of listeners, RD2Bs or even dietitians who've been in the field for, many years, are going to see, hey, we don't have to stick to the things that we don't like. We can change it up whenever we want, just like you did, and be successful at it as well. So thank you
Exactly.
so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can find Kourtney, owner of Intuitively Nourished, on Dietitian Your Way. All my listeners, you can either listen to it on our podcast or you can actually view it on YouTube as well. So, and that will be all.